Good evening. A soft breeze brushes against your cheek as you trudge along a dry, moonlit path. Your sandals crunch quietly over gravel and sand. Overhead, the stars are awake, silent and unmoving, but your companion, very much not silent. He gives a low cluck, fluttering in the basket strapped to your back. That's your rooster. And believe it or not, you'd be nowhere without him. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. There are more fascinating, relaxing videos to come. Now dim the lights and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are a royal dispatch courier of the Persian Empire, trudging across some of the most unforgiving terrain known to humankind. Behind you stretches the faint outline of Sardis, and ahead, well, Susa still lies many dusty sunrises away. But you're not alone. Tucked safely inside his woven crate is a rooster, bright-eyed, high-strung, and with an attitude problem. And yet he's one of your most trusted tools. No, he's not dinner. Not unless things go really sideways. The rooster is your clock, your alert system, and some whisper, your lucky charm. When the sky is ink black and you've lost track of the moon's rhythm, his crow slices the silence, reminding you of the hour. Not precisely, of course. He's a rooster, not a timepiece. But when you're sleeping in brief intervals under trees or trying to estimate a 2-day gallop's passage on foot, his crowing is oddly reassuring. You didn't always understand this. The first time you were handed a crate with a live rooster inside and told, "Don't lose him," you assumed this was a prank for new couriers. But no. You soon realized this was just another cog in the strange, glorious machinery of the Achaemenid postal system. And what a system it is. You travel the fabled Royal Road, one of the earliest known networks of fast, reliable communication. Stretching over 1,500 miles, it connects cities, fortresses, temples, and kings. At intervals, you find way stations stocked with fresh horses, food, and beds for couriers like yourself. Well, beds for you. Your rooster usually takes the windowsill. Still, you marvel at it sometimes. The sheer thought of how a message could leave the Aegean and arrive near the Persian Gulf in just a week. Quicker than most caravans and certainly faster than the news of a local scandal. Makes you feel like a thread sewn into a grand imperial quilt. A fast-moving, squawking, sleep-deprived quilt. Not all couriers travel with roosters, just the ones on longer, rural, or irregular routes. It's a logistical backup. If your sundial is useless in rain or snow, if your stars are hidden by clouds, if you lose track of time after a fever, you listen. The rooster's crow rhythm gives you a rough cycle. It's not just dawn he crows at, you know. There's the midnight squawk, the post-dusk warm-up, and the utterly unnecessary 2 a.m. solo performance that makes you consider vegetarianism. Roosters were chosen over other birds because, let's face it, owls are creepy, crows are ominous, and doves, while romantic, don't scream urgent military dispatch. Roosters are loud, territorial, and impossible to ignore, much like the nobles you deliver messages for. And there's another reason. The rooster in Persian culture isn't just poultry. He's symbolic. Associated with light, vigilance, and divine order, he shows up in Zoroastrian beliefs as a protector, chasing away darkness with his call. A kind of feathery alarm system warding off evil. Which is nice, considering how often you sleep in creepy abandoned watchtowers. Historians still argue whether the inclusion of roosters in courier practice was spiritual, practical, or symbolic. You suspect it was a mix of all three. Like everything in this empire, multifunctional, efficient, slightly theatrical. And you'd be lying if you said you haven't grown attached to yours. You named him Spitama. Not after Zoroaster exactly, but close enough to irritate your more pious colleagues. He has a bad habit of trying to peck your water pouch, but he always crows on time, mostly. Tonight, you make camp under a scraggly tree. The fire is small, more ember than flame, but the sky makes up for it, glittering with stars so bright they seem to hum. You tie Spitama's crate to the branch above, and he ruffles indignantly. You offer him a few cracked millet seeds from your pouch, more for the gesture than the nutrition. It's a quiet night, save for the distant howl of a jackal. Your sword lies by your bedroll unsheathed. Not that you'll need it. Hopefully. Spittimer gives a questioning croak. Maybe he senses your tension, or maybe he just resents the millet. You don't ask. You lie back and stare at the sky, mind drifting like the caravan dust. Tomorrow you'll hit a new station. Fresh water, maybe even dates if the governor's in a generous mood. But tonight you're still on the road, heartbeat slow, rooster asleep. Except crow. A sudden shriek from the tree startles you upright. Not quite dawn yet, but close. Maybe Spittimer is jet-lagged. You sigh, turn over and wrap your cloak tighter. And as you drift back to sleep, you think, not for the first time, that the mighty Persian Empire, with all its towers and scrolls and horses and gold, might very well hinge on the crow of one very grumpy bird. You rise before the sun, nudged not by choice but by Spittimer's second performance of the night, this time less of a crow and more of an irritated trumpet. He flaps once, twice, as if to say, "You've had your 2 hours. Let's move." Couriers don't argue with their clocks, even if they've got feathers and mood swings. You stretch the stiffness from your back and quietly repack your kit. Every movement is practiced, habitual. Bedroll, flask, cloak, dispatch satchel. And finally, the crate, roped shut and perched on your shoulder like a slightly warm drum with legs. The rooster shuffles. You mutter a quick thanks to Ahura Mazda that he didn't fly the coop in the night. Roosters, after all, aren't just symbolic, they're literal. These birds are timekeepers with feathers, an answer to one of the oldest human problems. How do you know when it's time to move, rest, or eat, when the sun is hidden or your body clock is off? You think about your fellow couriers, some who swear by polished bronze sundials dangling from their belts like heavy medallions. But those only work when you can see the sun and have a spare hand. That's not helpful when you're dodging mountain wolves or fording rivers with scrolls held above your head. Others try star maps, beautiful, poetic, and utterly useless in a sandstorm. That's where your rooster earns his keep. He doesn't need the stars. He doesn't care about clouds. He just crows. Like a miniature priest of rhythm, he marks out the ghostly drumbeat of night with unsettling precision. 3 to 4 times a night, usually, and once again at first light. The Persian night isn't measured in hours. It's measured in squawks. It helps that Persian couriers are obsessive about schedules. You're trained to deliver messages in record time. The system is brilliant. At each stop, called chaparkhane, you hand off your message to the next courier or swap horses and continue like passing a flaming baton across empires. No one stops moving until the message reaches the king or whoever's name is inked in careful calligraphy on that sealed scroll. And you're expected to know how long you've taken. There are no wristwatches. There are barely clocks. So the rooster isn't quaint. He's critical. A few older couriers say the rooster system started during Cyrus the Great's reign, when he supposedly insisted on timing all important dispatches, even those at night. With no mechanical tools and no consistent stars. Some say Cyrus's advisors remembered an old village trick. Roosters tend to crow at predictable times. Farm children used to use them like morning alarms. So why not scale it up? Historians still argue whether the rooster tradition actually came from Cyrus's era or whether it emerged later under Darius I. Either way, by your time it's just standard protocol. A courier going out for more than 2 days. Bring a cloak, a dagger, and a rooster. There are, of course, mishaps. You heard of one poor soul whose rooster refused to crow for 3 nights straight. When questioned by a furious general about why his arrival was delayed, the courier famously replied, "My bird held a grudge." The general was not amused. The courier now trains goats near Persepolis. Still, the idea that a living creature could be a more consistent timekeeper than any human invention is sort of charming, or irritating, depending on the night. You crest a low hill as dawn spills across the landscape like saffron milk. The light warms your arms, and Spitama stirs again, silent this time, as if satisfied his duties have been fulfilled. Down below, the road stretches wide and cracked toward a ribbon of trees and a puff of smoke from the next chapar khane. You pick up the pace, imagining fresh bread, or at least fewer bugs in your water skin. You wonder briefly what the ancients did before roads like this existed, before Persia had its empire-spanning arteries. Would they have trusted animals then too? Did the Elamites whisper to night birds? Did Babylonian merchants keep time by the hoot of owls or the rustle of bats? Probably not. Owls aren't known for punctuality. Still, it makes you smile to think of it. Civilizations hurling themselves forward, dreaming up gods and governments, yet still relying on a scruffy chicken to tell time. Roosters aren't flawless. Their internal rhythms can drift with the seasons. In cold months, they're sluggish. In spring, they're eager, very eager. You once had a rooster that tried to challenge a goat for dominance. Lost, obviously, but points for confidence. Some wealthier couriers, those with family connections to satraps or generals, travel with trained birds bred specifically for timely crowing. You once overheard a debate at a station between two such noble-born messengers about whether Anatolian breeds were more punctual than those from Media. The argument ended when one of their roosters crowed in the middle of the day. No one won that debate, except the rooster, who got extra millet. Spitama is not pedigreed. He's scrappy, possibly part pheasant, and once tried to bite your coin pouch. But he's consistent. You'd take that over nobility any day. You finally reach the station as the sun kisses the top of the nearest date palm. The smell of warm barley bread and horse sweat greets you like an old friend. A stable boy appears, eyes wide at the sight of the rooster crate. "Courier from Sardis?" he asks. You nod, handing over the sealed scroll. He glances at the crate and chuckles. "Still using chickens, huh?" You raise an eyebrow. "You've got something better?" He shrugs. "Nah. Just surprised you haven't switched to a water clock." "Let me know when your water clock can scream at wolves," you mutter, and head toward the water trough. And just like that, you're off again, refreshed, newly mounted, and still traveling with a sidekick who doesn't talk, doesn't eat much, and doesn't care whether you're tired or sore or questioning your career choices. He just crows. And you, faithful servant of the great king, keep listening. The road curves east now, its gravel thinning into hard-packed dust, where ancient wheels have left shallow scars in the earth. You ride light in the saddle, cloak fluttering behind, the scroll safely tucked against your chest. Spitama, ever vigilant, rides in his crate behind you, feathers occasionally poking through the slats like a feathery ghost demanding snacks. The royal road, this mighty artery of empire, isn't just a highway, it's an idea, an achievement. Darius I, brilliant and possibly a little obsessed with logistics, had it rebuilt to stitch together a realm stretching from the Aegean Sea to the Indus Valley. That's a lot of room for lost messages and missed birthdays. But here you are, galloping across its spine with the confidence of someone who knows that every 20 to 30 miles there's another chapar khane. Another pit stop with food, a horse, and hopefully someone who won't ask too many questions about why your rooster looks so personally offended by sunlight. Most days, these way stations are mundane. Sleep, eat, switch scrolls, go. But today, you're sent on a specific mission. Deliver a coded message not just through words, but through feathers. Yes. Today, you use feathered code. You pull off the road onto a smaller path bordered by stone markers carved with a royal lotus symbol. You slow your mount and give a low whistle. From your satchel, you retrieve a small silk pouch containing dyed rooster feathers. One red, one black, and one a strange green that definitely came from someone's questionable dye experiment. This system is only used in very specific circumstances, covert communication mostly. Long before ink and scrolls were common, symbols held power. And in border provinces where writing could be intercepted or misread, messengers sometimes carried visual codes instead. A red feather might mean urgent arrival, a black feather could signal enemy movement, while green, Well, that depends. Historians still argue whether green meant safe passage or poison alert. Let's hope the recipient today assumes the friendlier option. The rooster was key in delivering these silent messages. Station masters knew to check not just your satchel, but the crate. Some birds even had dyed feathers hidden under their wings. You've never had to smuggle intel inside the actual bird, but you did once carry a note tied to the inside of the crate with a wax seal stamped like a rooster's foot. Dramatic? Yes. Effective? Also yes. Roosters also provided a handy verification system. Let's say someone intercepted you on the road and tried to impersonate a courier. A fake might carry a scroll, sure, but only trained couriers could handle the birds without incident. You've seen it happen. A bandit thinking he can bluff his way into a station, then promptly getting pecked into retreat by a rooster who sensed the fear. It's hard to fake confidence when a furious bird is dancing on your shoulder. And if that wasn't enough, there's another level of code. Calls. Yes, some birds were trained to crow in response to particular cues. You're not sure how consistent this was. Spitama refuses to perform on command, but you've heard rumors. One courier swore he could get his rooster to crow 3 times in succession to signal that he carried a death sentence. Another boasted that his bird would remain completely silent if the message was peaceful. Do you believe all that? Maybe half. But it's a fact that Persian soldiers and messengers sometimes responded to sound-based cues, horns, bells, or yes, even bird calls. In areas with no temple bells or signal fires, the rooster's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. It didn't take much. A crow, followed by the appearance of a courier with a royal seal, was all the confirmation most commanders needed to prepare. You've even heard of roosters being bred specifically for pitch. High-pitched crows were preferred, clear, sharp, impossible to confuse with local wildlife. There were rumors of a breed kept in the mountains of Parthia that could crow so loudly it set off guard dogs 2 valleys over. You'd take that with a grain of salt, and maybe a pair of earplugs. Today, as you near the fortified villa where your coded feathers must be delivered, you feel a familiar mix of calm and absurdity. Here you are, a cog in the greatest information network of the ancient world, carrying dyed feathers and a rooster with strong opinions about wind. The guards at the villa stop you with spears crossed, but the moment they see the bird crate, they ease up. One even nods, recognizing the courier protocol. "Feather message?" he asks, eyeing the silk pouch. You hand it over silently. He inspects the feathers, then glances back at your bird. "Looks scrappy," he mutters. "Scrappy's how you survive the desert," you reply. Inside, the satrap's assistant reads the scroll and notes the feathers. No spoken response, just a grunt and a coin in your hand. Sometimes silence is part of the code too. As you leave, you glance back once. Spitama gives a sleepy cluck, barely peeking from his crate. "I don't suppose you meant to crow at the exact right time this morning," you whisper. He does not respond, probably plotting how to steal your lunch again. On your way back to the main road, your mind wanders. You think of all the systems, human and otherwise, that keep the Empire running. Relay riders, torch signals, trained falcons, never as reliable as the breeders claimed. Even whisper networks through temple scribes. And yet, the rooster endures. Not flashy, not expensive. Just a living, breathing alarm clock with attitude. You wonder if future civilizations will think it strange. Will they find tablets describing how kings depended on poultry for punctuality and laugh? You hope so. History should be a little funny. Besides, it's not so different from now. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be on time. Whether it's a rooster crowing in the desert or some future contraption ticking in a tower, it all comes down to the same thing, knowing when to act. And thanks to Spitama, you do. You set up camp beside a slow-moving stream, the kind that sings over stones and invites you to sleep deeper than you should. The embers of your fire crackle softly. Spitama perches on a flat rock nearby, puffed up like a noble with a chip on his shoulder. He doesn't like rivers. Too much noise, too many frogs. He once tried to fight a frog. The frog won. But here, surrounded by quiet, your mind wanders to what this bird means, not just for couriers, but for your people. In Persia, the rooster is more than a timekeeper. He's a creature caught between the sacred and the absurd. In Zoroastrianism, the faith that threads itself through your culture like silver in a tapestry, the rooster is a herald of light, literally. According to the Vendidad, a collection of Zoroastrian texts, the rooster's crow is the signal that darkness has lost the nightly battle. The demon of the dark, Angra Mainyu, slinks back into shadow as soon as the rooster calls. That first crow, it's not just biological, it's spiritual warfare. And Spitama, in his own grumpy way, is a soldier. You reach into your pouch and toss him a few more seeds, partly out of respect, partly because he looks like he's plotting mutiny. His beady eyes glint in the firelight like two tiny suns. Some say roosters were kept not just by couriers but by priests, magi, who believed their calls kept ritual time, just like yours. Before the formal water clocks and ceremonial chants, there was the rooster, reliable, vigilant, and not shy about his feelings. But not all reactions to the rooster were spiritual. Some people thought the rooster brought bad luck, especially if it crowed at the wrong time. Midnight? That's fine. Dawn? Absolutely. But if a rooster crowed in the middle of the day for no reason, that meant something unnatural was approaching. Death, betrayal, or, worst of all, a surprise inspection from the royal tax collectors. You heard once about a satrap who had a rooster that crowed during his daughter's wedding feast. He stopped the celebration, sent his priest to the temple, and made everyone drink goat's milk instead of wine. Apparently nothing bad happened, but also everyone was extremely annoyed. Historians still argue whether these superstitions filtered down from high priests or up from village folklore. Either way, there's no denying it. The rooster is loaded with meaning. He's a compass, a warning, a boastful symbol of control over the unknown. Even in your own work, you've seen moments when belief in the bird tips from routine into reverence. That time your fellow courier insisted on sleeping in a circle of rooster feathers to avoid bandits? A little weird, but no one got robbed that night. Coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. You recall, too, the tale of the silent rooster of Ecbatana, a bird so perfectly trained it would only crow at the exact moment the king's ceremonial torch was lit. Not a second before, not a second after. Witnesses claimed it never once failed. Of course, some skeptics argued it was a signal given by a nearby servant with a stick, but who are we to ruin a good legend? You watch Spitama fluff up and settle in for the night, turning once in his crate like a grumpy merchant folding his cloak. He's never struck you as a mystic bird, but tonight, in the flicker of the coals, he seems older somehow, more ancient than feathers should allow, a descendant of temple couriers and divine messengers, perhaps. You lie back and look at the stars. The Milky Way pours across the sky like spilled salt. A gentle breeze pulls at your cloak. The air is heavy with the scent of crushed mint and wild thyme. You close your eyes, but only briefly, because somewhere in the brush, something moves. You sit up, hand instinctively going to your blade. Spitama tenses, and then silence, then crow. Not loud, not panicked, but sharp. You freeze, that's not Spitama, another rooster, somewhere just off the road. You wait, heartbeat steady, eyes scanning the edge of the firelight. Could be a farm, could be another courier, could be something pretending to be either. Roosters don't crow without reason, not in the wild, not at night. They don't waste breath, unless there's something to warn. You bank the fire down to embers and wrap your scroll pouch tighter. You don't run. Running invites attention. You simply move, slow and steady, back to the road, Spitama now alert in his crate. He doesn't crow, but he doesn't sleep either. You travel for hours with nothing but footfalls and the occasional screech owl to keep you company. But the memory of that other bird clings to your spine. Who else rides the night with a rooster? Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe it was one of the courier watchers, spies who pretend to be messengers placed to monitor your speed, your loyalties, even your choice of route. Rumors say they carry black-feathered birds who never crow, trained to silence. You've never met one, or if you did, you wouldn't know. But again, the Empire runs on more than messages. It runs on belief, in the gods, in the system, in the idea that even the smallest creature, the humble rooster, can carry the burden of divine timing. You arrive at the next station just as the sky begins to shift. Not quite dawn, not quite night. That blue-grey pause when everything holds its breath. The station master meets you at the gate. He looks tired. His own rooster stands on a wall nearby, neck stretched high, waiting. They always seem to know the moment. He nods at your crate. "Did yours crow already?" You nod. He doesn't ask for proof, just opens the gate and lets you in. Because here, in the soft belly of the Persian Empire, when a rooster crows in the dark, people listen. The city walls rise in the distance like a dream out of dust. Tall, sun-warmed stone basking under the morning light. You're close now. Not just to your destination, but to a rare pause in your journey. One more delivery and then, maybe, a week of rest in the capital. Real rest. With cushions. And bread that doesn't taste like it was baked in a saddlebag. Spittimer seems to know. He's unusually quiet as you walk the final stretch toward the outer gate. Maybe even reflective. Or maybe he's just tired of your voice. Hard to tell with birds. Your boots crunch through a grove of cypress trees as you near the checkpoint. The guards barely glance at you once they see the seal on your satchel. And of course the rooster crate. That, more than any scroll or password, is your badge of legitimacy. After all, only a royal courier would be mad enough to carry poultry through snake country. The sun is just beginning to climb. Warmth spreads across your shoulders like a cloak of gold. You pass other travelers, traders with bulging carts, priests with their shaved heads and blank stares. Even a group of musicians arguing about whether lyres sound better after wine. No one else carries a rooster. In fact, people give your crate a wide berth. Maybe it's the smell. Maybe it's the way Spitama stares at them like he knows their darkest secrets. Or maybe it's superstition. The closer you get to the capital, the more varied the beliefs. Roosters have always lived in the strange no-man's land between sacred animal and walking curse. In one town, a crowing rooster before sunrise is said to bring wealth. In another, it means someone in your household is about to be publicly embarrassed, which might be wealth adjacent depending on your sense of humor. In the palace district, you've heard, some elite scribes keep roosters in mirrored chambers to study their reactions, believing their calls reveal political shifts. One claimed a rooster predicted the fall of Babylon by refusing to eat 3 days before the city fell. Another supposedly crowed every time a rival advisor entered the room. Coincidence? Maybe. Or just a well-fed rooster with opinions. Historians still argue whether this ritualistic obsession with roosters originated in Persia or was imported from India or Anatolia. Either way, by your time, it's woven into everything. Belief, practice, paranoia. You pass a small shrine near the inner gate, a humble stone structure with a carved flame at its center. A priest tends the fire. Beside the altar is a bowl of water and, curiously, a scattering of corn. You stop, lower your crate. Spittimer blinks. You blink back. You pour a few seeds from your pouch into the shrine's dish. Not a sacrifice exactly. More like a nod, a gesture. An acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, this loud, ridiculous bird is more than he seems. The priest watches you, says nothing. You don't wait for a blessing. You make your way into the capital with the quiet confidence of someone who has walked 1,000 miles and still has millet in his pocket. The streets are crowded now, buzzing with the late morning hum of an imperial city. Chariots clatter, vendors shout, children weave through crowds like arrows shot from invisible bows. You keep your head down. A courier's work is rarely noticed and even more rarely rewarded. Unless, of course, you're late. You're not late. You pass a statue of Darius himself, stone eyes forever scanning the horizon. Beneath it is an inscription praising the swiftness of his royal messengers. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat. You know the rest. And somewhere, on a very old version of that plaque, it probably said, "Nor roosters who refuse to cooperate." The palace looms ahead, its terraces like steps to the sky, guarded by golden lions and bored soldiers. You present your credentials, wait through the usual questions, then, finally, step into the message court. It's cool inside, shaded and quiet, a sharp contrast to the noisy world outside. A scribe waits at the reception bench, scroll open, quill poised. Origin? Sardis. Cargo? Royal dispatch. One scroll, one coded feather bundle. Condition of delivery? Unbroken seal. No delay. Rooster crowed properly. The scribe raises an eyebrow. That last part's not usually required. You shrug. Some of us still honor the old standards. He doesn't smile, but his quill flicks a little faster. You hand over the scroll. He checks the seal, nods, and then you unshoulder the crate and set it gently on the ground. Spittimer pokes his head out, stretches his neck, and, for reasons known only to him, lets out a magnificent crow that echoes off the marble. The scribe stares. You say nothing. Spittimer stares back. After a beat, the scribe clears his throat. "Thank you, courier. You may rest at the barracks." You nod, turn to leave, and just before you step outside, you hear the scribe mutter. "Third time this week one of those birds crowed during drop-off." You smile. Out on the steps, you let Spittimer perch on your arm for a moment. He flaps his wings, takes in the capital from his high perch like a tiny, judgmental god surveying a world he secretly owns. And maybe he does, in his own way. Because somewhere along the road, you stop thinking of him as luggage. He's not just a bird in a box. He's a companion, a symbol, a timekeeper, a superstition, a warning, a joke, and a prophecy. He's a rooster. And for the mighty Persian mail system, that's more than enough. But rest doesn't last long. It never does. You barely have time to scrub the road dust off your legs and gulp down a bowl of pomegranate stew before a runner from the courier hall finds you. Not running, ironically, just briskly annoyed. She hands you a wax-sealed slip stamped in green. "New dispatch. Urgent. South route." You sigh. The stew isn't even halfway cold, but duty calls, or in this case, squeaks. Spittimer, who's been preening his feathers in the sun like a tiny emperor on vacation, looks unimpressed. His crate clicks shut with a familiar thunk, and once again, you're on the road. This time, it's a night run. Southbound, through narrow hill passes and thick groves of tamarisk trees. You've heard stories about these parts. Bandits, wild boars, one courier who claimed a ghost stole his sandals. No one ever asked why the ghost would want them. Ghosts are known for many things, but rarely for practical footwear. As the sun dips behind the horizon, you find yourself oddly comforted by Spittimer's presence. The rhythm of his movements in the crate, the occasional grumble from his throat. It's like traveling with a cantankerous metronome. He keeps you in tempo. Roosters, it turns out, aren't just for timing or tradition. In the Persian courier world, they're also a form of early warning system. Their senses are sharp, far sharper than yours at midnight after 40 hours without decent sleep. They react to things you can't see, or worse, things you've trained yourself to ignore. Like now. You're halfway through a shaded ravine when Spittimer lets out a sharp single crow. Not his usual musical flourish. This one is short, alarmed. You freeze. So does your horse. No sound, no wind, no movement. And then, a snap. To your left, something shifts in the underbrush. You draw your short blade in one motion and flick your reins to back the horse slowly away. The leaves rustle again, and this time you spot it. Just a pair of glowing eyes in the dark, low to the ground. A hyena. Big one. Watching. Waiting. Your grip tightens, but you stay still. The animal doesn't lunge. It just stares. Maybe it's the fire in your eyes. Maybe it's the fire in Spitama's. The rooster, now on high alert, gives another crow, this one defiant, like he's personally offended by the creature's fashion choices. The hyena twitches, then, after a beat, turns and melts back into the woods. You exhale, loudly. Historians still argue whether roosters were trained for these warning behaviors or simply evolved into their roles through centuries of selective use. Some believe early couriers noticed that roosters reacted to certain sounds, creaking branches, whispered speech, even unfamiliar hoofbeats. Over time, those birds became preferred, then bred, then legendary. There's even a famous case carved into the walls of a station near Persepolis, a rooster named Darvaz who supposedly saved an entire convoy by crowing minutes before a rock slide. Whether that was divine intervention, animal instinct, or dumb poultry luck remains hotly debated. But tonight, you're not debating. You're grateful. You keep riding under stars that glimmer like sand caught in a god's palm. The path widens into open scrubland, the smell of fennel and ash in the air. You know there's a way station nearby, a small one run by a grizzled woman with a broken nose and a terrifying talent for barley bread. You arrive well after midnight. The station's torch is lit low, signaling that someone's awake. You dismount quietly and tap the gate with your knuckles. A voice croaks from inside. Courier? Yes. Rooster? Obviously. The door opens. The woman barely glances at you but stares long and hard at Spitama's crate. That one crows at ghosts. Only if they don't tip, you reply. She lets you in. Inside, the station smells of smoke and coriander. A pot of something warm bubbles on the hearth. You sit by it, exhausted, while she checks your credentials. Spitama perches near the fire, basking like he owns the lease. She eyes him again. My cousin swears roosters don't crow at night unless a spirit's passing. You nod. Or a hyena. She shrugs. Same thing, depending on the cousin. You wonder how much of the empire runs on logic and how much on old stories passed down from fire pit to fire pit. Everyone has a theory about these birds. Everyone's got an anecdote, a miracle, a warning. One courier you knew carried a rooster feather in his boot for luck. Another claimed his rooster refused to crow the night before his station was attacked, like the bird knew what was coming and chose silence as protest. Some say roosters are like miniature oracles. Others say they're just noisy. The truth? Probably both. You eat a little, sleep a little less, and ride out just before dawn. The air is cold enough to sting your lungs. Spitama gives one half-hearted crow, as if reminding the sun it has obligations too. The sky turns from coal to copper. Hills ripple like sleeping giants. You ride into them with the message secure, the bird alert, and a strange calm settling over you. This leg of the journey will end soon. The destination is a fortress built into a cliffside, one of those places that seems carved from the bones of the earth itself. You'll deliver your scroll, report your time, and maybe, just maybe, get a cup of real tea. But before that, there's one more stretch of empty road. The kind of stretch that makes you question why any empire thought this was a good idea. The wind is high, the ground uneven, and the nearest help is a half-day's ride away. That's when Spitama crows again. Not an alarm this time, something else. A long, drawn-out note that echoes off the stones. A crow of triumph, or arrival, or maybe just indigestion. You smile, let the reins go slack, and ride toward the rising sun. The fortress clings to the cliffside like a stubborn barnacle, ancient, jagged, and only accessible by a path so narrow your horse hesitates at the base. You dismount, pat its side in apology, and start the long ascent on foot. Spitama shifts uneasily in his crate, feathers rustling with what you've come to recognize as skepticism. He does not appreciate stairs, neither do your thighs. Each step grinds dust into your sandals. The air thins as you climb, the wind pressing cool fingers against your neck. It's beautiful here in a way that feels uninvited, raw and wide and quietly dangerous. The sort of place where even the sky keeps its distance. By the time you reach the final landing, your lungs are working overtime and Spitama has made 3 distinctly judgmental sounds. You respond with a grunt and knock on the outer gate, your fist echoing against wood reinforced with bronze studs. A bored voice answers, "Courier?" You nod. "Bird?" You nod again. The gate opens without ceremony, revealing a short, muscular man with a nose like a ruined wall and the build of a bull who reads poetry. He gestures for you to enter and takes your scroll with barely a glance. Inside, the fortress is cooler, calmer, thick walls muffle the world outside. You're shown to a stone bench where you finally unhook Spitama's crate and let him rest. He hops out with the grace of a weary philosopher, fluffs his feathers and begins inspecting the room for snack opportunities. "First time here?" the gatekeeper asks, sitting opposite you. You nod. "Wasn't sure it actually existed until about 10 minutes ago." He chuckles. "Most don't. That's the point." You glance at the scroll now being delivered deeper into the structure. "What's in that one?" He shrugs. Could be troop orders, could be a poem, could be a complaint about the palace pigeons. "You think the king takes pigeon complaints?" He leans in, lowering his voice. "You ever seen how many pigeons are in Persepolis?" "Fair." You sit in silence for a moment as Spitama pecks at a loose tile with deep suspicion. Then the man says something unexpected. "Did your rooster crow last night?" You blink. He did. Twice. Once near the ravine, once before dawn. He exhales. That explains it. Explains what? "We heard another rooster. Middle of the night. Outside the walls." You frown. "There's no village nearby." He nods slowly. "Exactly." The silence between you stretches. Spitama, unbothered, climbs into your lap and flops there with all the delicacy of a sack of flour. You scratch his head absent-mindedly, heart beating just a little faster. A wild rooster wouldn't crow at night, and trained ones only in the company of couriers. "Could have been an echo, you offer." "Could have been," the man agrees. "Could have also been someone testing if we were awake. Bandits don't usually travel with poultry." "No," he says, "but spies might." It's not a joke. Courier watchers, saboteurs, defectors. There's a whole layer of shadow work that trails behind your profession like a second, quieter route. You don't know much about them by design, but you know this. A crow at the wrong hour in the wrong place can be a louder message than any scroll. Historians still argue whether the Persians truly used roosters for espionage. It sounds absurd until you realize just how predictable people become when trained around a schedule. Break that rhythm, insert a bird that crows at the wrong time, and suddenly everything is off balance. Troops shift, gates tighten, people get nervous. Sometimes that's all it takes. The gatekeeper stands and stretches. "You'll leave in the morning. We're sealing the pass for a few days. Someone's been tracking our routes." You nod, trying not to think about how many tracks you left on the hillside. Spitama closes his eyes as if to say, "Let them try." That night you're given a room, bare but warm. You lie under a wool blanket, every joint humming with exhaustion, and stare at the ceiling beams. Outside, the wind whistles. Somewhere deep in the fortress, a soldier sings a lullaby in a language you don't know. You drift into sleep, and then crow. Loud. Close. Not Spitama. You jolt upright. He does too, wings flaring, feathers puffed, eyes wide, but silent. You hear footsteps in the hall, metal scraping stone. A voice murmuring, "That was close." You step into the corridor just in time to see two guards jog toward the outer wall. Spitama doesn't follow, but he watches. He always watches. Later, you find out someone was spotted near the pass. No confrontation, just footprints, one set, leading nowhere. You leave the next morning before dawn. The fortress disappears behind you as if it never existed. The sun hasn't yet breached the horizon, but the road gleams faintly, like memory catching the light. Spittimer sleeps in his crate now. He earned it. And you? You keep walking, thinking, wondering. What kind of empire trusts a bird to protect its secrets? Yours does. And maybe, just maybe, that's why it works. The morning smells like dust, horse sweat, and fennel. You're back on the lower roads now. Fewer cliffs, more wagons. You pass herders guiding shaggy sheep, merchants comparing sandal prices, and one man pushing a squeaky cart that seems to contain nothing but onions and despair. No one gives your crate more than a passing glance. It's easy to forget in these slower stretches of the empire that you're part of something massive. You're just another figure trudging toward a town with a sealed message and a chicken who considers himself upper management. But Spittimer isn't sleeping anymore. He's restless today, crowed once at dawn, twice at a cloud, and then again, just for the drama. You try ignoring him, but eventually you give in and let him perch on your arm while you walk. You've learned by now that sometimes when the bird is nervous, it's best to listen. The road leads you toward an oasis town, one of those settlements that seems to pop out of nowhere, surrounded by palms and papyrus like a mirage with plumbing. You're stopping at the local records outpost, a small domed building with more scrolls than chairs and a scribe who always smells faintly of fish. You enter with your usual nod and the scroll held high. The scribe barely glances at it before saying, "You brought him?" You pause. "The rooster?" "Obviously." You tilt the crate toward him. Spittimer peers through the slats with all the warmth of a judge at a soup competition. The scribe smiles faintly. "He's early." You blink. Early for what? He leans back and gestures to a clay water clock in the corner. "I've been testing it against your birds, trying to chart which is more reliable." You raise an eyebrow. "And?" He shrugs. "Depends on the weather. And the mood. The rooster doesn't care about evaporation rates. But he also has opinions." You mutter, "Don't we all?" The two of you sip lukewarm barley tea while the scribe marks your delivery time in his log. Spittimer gets a few choice grains and a compliment about his plumage. Honestly, he deserves it. His tail feathers have come in nicely since your last trip through here. As you prepare to leave, the scribe asks a question that hangs in the air like incense. "Do you think the roosters know what they're part of?" You pause. "You mean, do they understand they're working for an empire?" He smiles. I mean, do they sense the rhythm of it all, the pattern?" It's an odd question, but it stays with you as you walk. Does Spittimer know that he is more than a bird? That when he crows, someone might start moving, or stop moving, or listen harder to the wind? Or is he just hungry? Historians still argue whether the role of roosters was part of a deliberate state mechanism or simply evolved from rural habits. Was it systematized under Darius, or did regional messengers bring their own birds long before any official order was given? And then there are the conspiracy theories, ones so absurd you can't help but chuckle as you remember them. One scroll you read claimed that elite couriers in the mountain provinces used special breeds of roosters that only crowed in the presence of silver. Another suggested roosters were part of a hidden code. 3 crows before dawn meant a change in leadership. 1, peace. 2, war. Totally impractical, completely unverifiable, deeply entertaining, and yet you walk. Spittimer shifts. And somewhere far ahead you see a figure standing on the side of the road, alone, waiting. You approach slowly. The figure is cloaked, face shadowed beneath a woven hood. Not unusual out here, sunburn is no joke, but their stance is too still, too measured. You stop a few feet away, they don't move. Then softly they say, "Did the rooster crow today?" You tilt your head. Which time? The figure's mouth twitches, maybe a smile, maybe not. Then, without another word, they step aside and let you pass. You keep walking. Don't look back. Spitama gives a low, questioning cluck. You shrug. Guess you're famous. It's not the first time a stranger has asked about the bird. Some treat him like a lucky charm. Others, like a warning. Once, a child threw him a ribbon, whispering something about protection from the dark-winged ones. You didn't ask. You arrive at the next station just before sundown. The staff there is sparse. A sleepy clerk and a half-blind camel tied to a post. The clerk waves you in. You've come from the fortress? You nod. Any trouble? Only philosophical. He laughs, doesn't ask what that means. You bed down under an awning, cloak over your shoulders. Spitama nestled beside you in the crate, unusually quiet now. You feel his warmth against your leg. The night is cool, scented with myrrh and old parchment. Someone is singing softly 2 stalls down, something about stars and fathers and wine. You let your eyes close, and then, crow, you smile. This time it's not warning, not fear, just a sound marking the moment. Time has passed. You are here, and the bird still sings. You wake before the rooster this time, barely. The stars are fading overhead and the horizon is just beginning to blush with light. Spitama stirs in his crate, making a sound that could mean good morning or why are you like this? You roll up your bedding, tighten your sandals and drink the last of your lukewarm water. The clerk from last night is already dozing again under his blanket of scrolls. You step over his snoring form and return to the road. Today the path forks east. Your scroll is bound for a garrison town near the salt plains. It's not a long ride, but it's dry and exposed. The kind of route where your thoughts bake in your skull if you're not careful. And with all the recent talk of watchers and coded roosters and mysteriously timed crows, well, your thoughts have a lot to stew over. You ride in silence for hours. The terrain flattens, sun climbing overhead. Heat rolls off the earth like invisible waves. The horse plods forward dutifully. Spitama rests in the crate, his head tucked under a wing. You envy him. You try to distract yourself by counting cloud shadows, by composing terrible poetry in your head, by wondering how much coin it would take to finally retire and become a date farmer. But none of it sticks. Because today the road feels watched. You pass no other riders, no caravans, no shepherds or traders, just empty land, wind and sky. And yet, your neck prickles. Spitama shifts. Then CROW. It startles even you. Loud, sharp, decisive. Not the lazy mid-morning caw of a rooster wanting attention. This is the kind of crow that breaks glass in memory. The kind that jolts you upright in your bedroll. You rein in your horse, look around, nothing. And then, up ahead, movement, a glint of metal, a flicker of motion among rocks. You dismount quietly, crouch behind your saddle. It's a rider. One figure seated on a dark horse watching from the ridge above. Just watching. Not armed, not hailing, and not moving. You watch them. They watch you. Spitama goes silent. Minutes pass. Then the rider turns and vanishes. You wait a moment longer, mount up again, continue forward slowly, eyes scanning the ridgeline. Spitama doesn't make another sound. Historians still argue whether such riders, quiet observers, stationed on out-of-the-way paths, were part of the official postal oversight system or operated in the shadows for other purposes. Some claim they were loyalty testers. Others insist they were saboteurs from rival satraps. And then there are those who believe they didn't exist at all, just stories couriers told each other on sleepless nights to feel important. But you've seen them. More than once, and so has your rooster. At midday you stop in the only scrap of shade for miles, a squat boulder surrounded by dust and scrub. Spitama hops out and pecks at invisible insects. You sip water and rest your eyes. That's when you hear it. Another crow. Not Spitama. Farther off, you sit up. And then, silence. 2 crows, from different directions, within minutes of each other. Coincidence? Not likely. It's not a signal you recognize. not part of any known feather code or courier rhythm. But you've traveled too long with roosters to ignore them, so you wait and wait. Then, footsteps. A figure appears over the ridge, not a threat, a courier. Younger, wrapped in a red sash, leading a thin, overworked mule. She nods at you, eyes narrow. Yours crowed. You nod. Mine too. You both look at the horizon. Neither of you says the obvious thing, that something is happening out here. Some unseen ripple tugging at the web of messages, stirring the birds, unsettling the patterns. You travel together for a few miles, swap travel stories, bad bread, the usual. Then you part ways, and the road stretches on. That evening, you reach the garrison town. The guard at the gate eyes your crate warily. "He one of the talking ones?" he asks. You squint. "You mean crowing?" "No, I mean talking. Last week, someone passed through here with a rooster that said names, out loud." You stare at him. "Names?" you ask. "Yeah," whispered Darius 3 times and then screamed. "Are you sure it wasn't the courier screaming?" He shrugs. "Could have been. The heat's been weird." You enter the town as lamps flicker on. Soldiers lounge on steps, sharpening blades. A woman sells figs from a cart shaped like a fish. You hand off your scroll to a quartermaster who looks like he's been chewing rocks since birth. He logs your time, glances at Spitama. "Still using those?" You nod. He's faster than most scribes. The quartermaster grunts. "And probably better smelling." You're offered a room. No feather mattress, but a blanket and a place to sleep. Spitama curls up beside you, and just as your eyes begin to close, crow, soft, almost a whisper. And you wonder, is it a clock, a warning, or simply a message you haven't yet learned to read? The room is dark. Not just nighttime dark, but sealed, tight dark. The kind you only get in stone buildings built to keep out heat, light, and maybe the occasional roaming bandit. You lie still for a moment, unsure if you woke naturally or if something nudged you from sleep. Then you hear it, the shuffle of feathers, the soft click of claws on wood. Spitama is awake. You sit up, blinking in the darkness. He's standing in the crate, not crowing, not rustling, just staring at the wall, alert, completely still. You've learned by now that's not normal. You wait. A minute passes. Then, tap. Not from inside, from the corridor. Deliberate. 1, 2, then silence. You stand and grab your satchel. Unlatch the crate. Spitama hops onto your shoulder without hesitation, which is concerning. He doesn't do that unless something's wrong. You open the door a crack. Nothing. But you feel it. The kind of quiet that hums just a little too loud. You move down the hall. The guard who was posted earlier is gone. Or sleeping. Or worse. Outside, the moonlight paints everything in pale silver. The garrison yard is empty. Your horse is still tied at the post, snoring softly. No sign of movement. Until another crow. This one faint. Distant, but not Spitama. A second later, a matching crow responds, from behind the garrison, and then a third. Farther still. You count them. 3. Different tones. Different directions. Spitama says nothing. You've heard stories. You just never thought you'd live one. They call it the chorus. A rare phenomenon, whispered among the oldest couriers. Supposedly, when enough messages align, urgent, secret, world-shifting, the roosters respond. Not trained, not signaled. They just know. And they sing, one by one. Across stations, across miles, a chain of crowing that links riders like beads on a string. Historians still argue whether the chorus ever truly happened. There's no record, no official documentation, just rumors. Tales of nights when roosters crowed in perfect succession, marking the moment something changed. You never expected to hear it, and now here you are, standing in a courtyard, shoulder heavy with feathers, listening. The first crow again, then the second, then a fourth, new, closer. You don't wait. Your scroll pouch is already packed. You untie your horse, leap onto the saddle, and ride. No orders, no direction, just instinct, and a rooster. The wind slaps against your face. Spitama clutches your shoulder with talons just sharp enough to remind you he's not ornamental. He's part of this. You gallop past shuttered homes and sleeping guards, past fig carts and oil lamps, toward the edge of town, toward the plain, and the crows continue. Like a message you can't yet read but feel in your chest. You ride until the town is gone behind you, the road turning to open land. The stars above shine brighter now, as if watching. You pass a stone marker, ancient and half-buried. One you've seen before. A place of crossroads. Not the physical kind, the other kind. You stop, listen. Nothing. Then crow, Spitama. Loud. Sure. He's not joining the others, and he's answering them. And you, courier of the Empire, feel something strange in your ribs. Something between pride and dread. Because you understand now. It was never just about timekeeping, or superstition, or symbolism. The roosters are part of the system, not an accessory, not a leftover from peasant habits, but a living signal, a layer of the network so old, so woven into the rhythms of the Empire that no one sees it anymore, except when it sings. You breathe in and ride. You don't know what message is passing through the chorus tonight. War, betrayal, a king's death, a god's return. But you'll carry your part of it, just as they do. Spitama crows once more, long, low, and final. Then he settles. The night grows still, but you do not stop, because now you understand. The birds always knew. The road unfolds before you like a ribbon of ash and silver, still warm from the day's heat and glowing faintly under the weight of moonlight. The chorus has gone quiet now. Only Spitama's breathing, soft even, oddly calm, fills the space between hoofbeats. You ride with no scroll this time, no official seal, just instinct, your training, and that quiet, unshakable sense that you are moving through something larger than the road. You reach the next station just before dawn. It's small, more outpost than structure, with a single lamp burning and a tired man leaning against the doorframe. He sees you, sees the crate, and straightens. "You heard it too?" he asks. No need for pleasantries. You nod. He doesn't question where you're headed. He just steps aside and says, "We've had 6 come through tonight. All silent. All with birds." You dismount, let your horse drink, and sit beside a half-burnt fire. Another courier sleeps nearby, boots still on, rooster curled beside him like a cat. There's something in the air here, not fear, not quite urgency either. A stillness, like the moment between inhale and exhale. No one speaks for a long time, and when they do, the words are soft. "Do you think it started?" one asks. "Or ended?" another replies. Historians still argue whether there was ever a single moment that marked the turning point of the Persian Empire, whether its beginning and end were events or just slow shifts of sand. But for those who served the road, who listened to the rhythms of hooves and crows and rumors, moments like this always meant something. You eat in silence, a figiel misteto, a crust of bread. Spitama nibbles something from your palm, then returns to his crate unprompted. No crow, not even a rustle. Just waiting. By midday the sun has bleached the sky, clouds scatter like sheep. You and 2 other couriers ride out again, loosely aligned, without a spoken plan. You don't need one. The road takes you through ruined columns, remnants of a temple to a god no one invokes anymore. Your fellow rider points up. Bird tracks. You glance where he's looking and see them. Chicken footprints in the dust. Not yours, not his. Someone came through here. Or something. You continue. You pass dry wells, old market stones, silent shrines. And then a single clay tablet, cracked, half buried in the dirt, beside a rooster feather. You don't pick it up. Just mark it with a stone and move on. The feather is dyed red. You've seen the codes before. And while the modern system abandoned most of them, a few still linger in the oldest parts of the network. Red, not danger, not war, change. That night, you sleep beside a river. Not a planned stop, but you needed water, and the sky had grown heavy with wind. You lie under the stars, Spittimer perched on a tree branch overhead, unusually dignified. You'd think he were on guard duty if you didn't know him better. And then a soft crow, not loud, not meant for you. You turn your head. Across the river, a figure stands. Another courier, too far to see clearly. But you can tell by the stance, the silhouette. And the crate strapped over one shoulder. They raise a hand, not a wave. Just acknowledgement. You nod once. And sleep comes quickly after that. Because some nights that's all the message is, you are not alone. By the next morning the land has changed again. Gone are the dusty paths and brittle shrubs. Now the road curves through rolling hills, green and generous, dotted with almond trees and sleepy goats that look like they've witnessed the rise and fall of several empires and judged them all wanting. It's almost easy to forget the crows, the silence, the strange tension that stretched across the plains just days ago. Almost. Spittimer rides easy in the crate again, calm but watchful. You've learned his moods by now. He's not tense, but not settled either. Like a messenger who knows the letter he carries is sealed, but not who it's addressed to. The road eventually brings you to a town nestled beside a lazy river, its rooftops covered in sun-bleached linen and the air thick with the smell of baking barley. A standard rest station at first glance. But something feels different. Everyone's quiet. Not tense, not afraid, just listening. The station master, a large woman with arms like tree trunks and the piercing gaze of someone who's already handled 3 emergencies before lunch, steps out as you dismount. "You've got one too," she says, nodding toward the crate. You nod. She glances to her left. Several more crates rest beneath the station awning, 5, maybe 6, some with birds already asleep, others alert, none crowing. "Any idea what it means?" you ask. She shakes her head. They've been arriving since yesterday, all silent, all from different routes. You sit beside her. Watch a bird hop across the dusty yard. A black rooster, elegant, lean, clearly not native to this region. Its feathers shimmer purple in the sun. "That one came from Carmania," she says. "Courier said it hadn't crowed once in 4 days. Then, last night, just once, loud, then quiet again." Spittimer's been quiet too. She smiles faintly. They always are before something. Before what, though? Historians still argue whether these periods of avian silence were coincidental, psychological, or patterned. One school insists there was no real messaging system, just couriers reading into noise and nerves. But those who actually rode the roads know better. You feel it, the change in rhythm, the way everyone seems to be waiting for something without knowing what. You share a meal with the other couriers, bread, goat cheese, something pickled and vaguely alarming. No one speaks much. It's not that they're unfriendly. It's that everyone's too tuned in to the moment. Then, near sundown, a sound. Not a crow, a whistle. Low, wavering, rising and falling in a pattern you don't recognize. The station master stiffens. "That's a courier code," she mutters. "Which region?" She doesn't answer. She's already moving. You and 2 others follow her to the edge of the compound. A rider appears over the hill, wind-tossed, wild-eyed, clutching a scroll like it's on fire. He rides straight into the yard and falls off the horse before anyone can react. You're on him in seconds. "Courier?" the station master asks, kneeling. He nods weakly. "North. Northern route." "Trouble?" He nods again, presses the scroll into her hands, then looks straight at your crate. "Yours crowed last night?" he rasps. You nod. His lips twitch into a grin. "Told them." And then he passes out cold. You help carry him inside. A medic comes. Water, cloth, whispered prayers. Nothing unusual for a courier's collapse. But the scroll? The scroll is something else. The station master reads it in silence, then reads it again. She doesn't speak for a long time, then she turns to all of you. It started, she says, and no one needs to ask what it is. Because every empire has a moment, a pivot, a hinge in time where power tilts and something inevitable begins to unfold. You don't need the details yet. You'll get them soon enough. The message will make its way to the palaces, the temples, the generals. Orders will go out. Horses will ride. Roads will hum. But tonight, you lie beneath a blanket and watch the stars shift overhead. Spitama sits at your side, and just before you sleep, he crows, only once. But it's enough. The air the next morning carries that strange metallic stillness you recognize from storms and coronations. One of those rare days when the empire seems to hold its breath and wait. You rise early, though sleep had come slow and shallow. Your dreams were filled with galloping hooves, voices carried on wind, and roosters whose eyes glowed like coals. You're not sure whether to be disturbed or impressed. Spitama doesn't seem concerned. He's fluffed up contentedly on a windowsill, watching the horizon like he's expecting someone. The courier who collapsed yesterday is still unconscious but breathing steady. You don't know his name. Might never. But there's a bond between couriers that doesn't require introductions. You've both walked the same bone-dry roads, both eaten the same questionable figs, both slept with your back to a crate full of sarcasm and feathers. The station master calls you over after breakfast. We've received 2 more identical scrolls, she says. Word is moving faster than we are. You nod. She hands you a new message tube, this one wrapped in dark blue cord, the color of royal eyes-only directives. I need you to carry this south, she says, to the river port at Choga Zambil. There's a relay ship waiting. You raise an eyebrow. No one sends birds by boat. They are today. You don't ask why. You take the scroll, saddle up, and set out. The road south twists through foothills and groves of myrtle. Bees hum lazily in the flowers. A snake curls across your path and disappears into a crack in the earth like it has better places to be. You pass other couriers heading the opposite way. Some nod, some don't. One old rider with a rooster perched on his head salutes you with 2 fingers and says, he already knows where you're going. You don't bother asking who he is. You ride hard and you think about the message. The one the station master didn't explain, the one sealed so tightly even the wax looks nervous. But you know the shape of it. Not the words, but the weight. It's the kind of scroll that shifts the air in a room before it's even opened. Historians still argue what the message was. A death in the royal family, a rebellion in Bactria, a vision seen by the high priest. Some even say it wasn't a message at all, but a signal, a trigger for some ancient plan whispered down through generations of roosters and riders alike. You reach the port by sundown. It's not what you expected. Not bustling, not crowded. Just one long, flat vessel. Crew waiting silently. And beside it, a small pen with 5 rooster crates. The moment you approach, Spitama perks up. Crows. Once. 5 other roosters answer. Not in unison, not a chorus, but a wave. One after the other. You dismount. The port clerk, a thin man with hands like reeds, takes your scroll and your name. He looks at Spitama, then nods to the crates. 6 birds, 6 regions, 1 route. Where to? He shrugs. Doesn't say. Just that they go with the scrolls. You help them load the crates. Spitama resists at first. He doesn't like boats, even in theory. But eventually he settles into a reinforced box with more ventilation than your first barracks bed. You watch them push off. 6 birds, 6 scrolls, 1 unspoken question riding low on the water under a peach-pink sky. As the boat fades into the distance, you realize something. For the first time in weeks, you have no assignment, no scroll, no destination, no crate. You stand on the dock, hands empty, and you feel the silence. Not just absence, but potential. Something has moved, shifted, begun. You turn away, walk into town, buy a meal you don't have to eat standing up, sleep in a real bed with a real pillow. You don't dream of Roosters. You dream of the road. You stay in town longer than planned. A full day, then two. The road doesn't call you in the usual way. It waits, as if giving you space, as if letting you breathe before it tugs you forward again. On the third morning, just after sunrise, someone knocks at your door. It's not another courier. It's a palace runner, young, out of breath, and clearly unused to dealing with people who might be carrying bird crates instead of gossip. He hands you a small scroll. No seal, no cord. Just your name, carefully scratched in ink. Inside it says, "Come east, the birds have arrived." That's all. You eat quickly, pay your host, saddle up. This time no crate, no companion, just your own 2 feet, a fresh horse, and a feeling in your chest that something is closing, some circle, some story. The ride is long. The eastern road climbs through drier country, where the trees huddle low to the ground and the stones whisper when the wind slides past. You recognize none of the other couriers on the route. That's rare. It tells you something big has shifted. And then, on the 4th night, you arrive. The temple isn't marked on any map. It's tucked into the cliffs above a half-dry river, accessible only by a path that feels more guessed than carved. The entrance is a simple archway. No guards, no fanfare. Inside, the air is cool, silent, and full of birds. Not 100, not even 20. Just 6, the same 6 from the ship, Spitama among them. You feel something catch in your throat. Not emotion exactly, not pride, but recognition. Like seeing an old comrade at a festival you forgot was today. He sees you, doesn't move, doesn't crow, just watches. A figure appears beside the birds. A man dressed in courier garb, older than you, face weathered like tree bark, eyes sharp as flint. He holds 6 scrolls, opens none. "You've come," he says. You nod. "Why now?" He turns to the birds. They arrived 2 days ago, all silent until last night, then one by one. They crowed. He nods. In order, west to east, just once, each. You look around the chamber. Symbols carved into the walls. Maps of routes so old they predate even Darius's reforms. And feathers, dozens of them, black, white, red, tied together in loose bundles. You ask, "What was the message?" He finally smiles. No message, just the moment. They carried not a message to be read, but one to be marked. Historians still argue whether such moments were real or symbolic, whether these roosters, trained or wild, simply mirrored the urgency of the humans around them, or whether, in some strange, ancient way, they were active participants in the rhythm of empire. You believe they were both. He gestures to Spitama. He's the last. Once he crows again, it ends. What ends? The man shrugs. This part. You kneel beside the crate. Spitama looks tired. Not in a way that worries you. More like a candle that's given just enough light. You speak softly. Not words he'll understand, but rhythm, tone, the cadence of road and rest and return. He closes his eyes and crows. One final, even perfect note. Not too loud, not dramatic, just enough. And then silence. You sit back on your heels. The man gathers the crates. What happens now? You ask. We go home. And the birds? He smiles. We let them rest. You leave the temple as the stars rise. The road doesn't pull anymore. It walks beside you. Later they'll say this was the night something turned in the empire. No one will agree on what. But the Roosters, they knew. You walk back alone. This time not as a courier, but as something harder to define. part witness, part participant, and part ghost, drifting through the seams of a story that most people will never hear, and fewer will believe. No scroll, no crate, no orders. The quiet feels both unfamiliar and earned. You follow old paths that feel softer underfoot than before, as if the land itself remembers you. You pass through towns where people glance up from their market stalls and nod politely, unaware of where you've been or what you've just witnessed. To them, you are simply another traveler, and maybe that's what you are now. At a watering post near the village of Matana, a young girl sits on a bench with a spotted hen on her lap. The hen is preening her feathers and the girl is humming, completely unaware that this image mirrors something sacred, something imperial, something ancient. She looks up and asks, "Where's your bird?" You hesitate, then smile. He finished his route. She nods like that makes perfect sense. Mine lays eggs. She doesn't go anywhere. That's good, you reply. Some of them already went everywhere. You buy a small pouch of raisins, eat slowly, and walk the rest of the day without urgency. That night you find yourself near a familiar outpost. The bench outside the gate creaks as you sit. A clerk steps out, recognizes you, and offers you water. "No scroll?" he asks. "No bird," you reply. He nods, says nothing else, just sits with you under the open sky. And above, the stars return, unchanged, scattered like ancient dots of ink on the parchment of the heavens, watching, enduring. You wonder what they've seen, what they've heard, maybe even the chorus. You lie down beside the post wall, folding your cloak under your head. For the first time in moons, you sleep without your boots on. No feathered companion to wake you. No scroll-burning metaphorical holes in your pouch. And you rest. Because some stories end not with a roar or a crow, but with the sound of sandals on sand, the whisper of memory, and the knowledge that the journey was real, even if no one else will ever truly know what was carried. And somewhere far off, in a courtyard filled with birds now retired, one final rooster preens his feathers, stares into the wind, and stays quiet. The road has faded now, and the stars overhead are soft, sleepy witnesses to your journey. The wind no longer pushes, only whispers. And you, gentle traveler, have walked far enough for tonight. Your boots are dusted with old sand. The voices of the Empire, crows, scrolls, watchful eyes, have quieted behind you. There's nothing left to deliver. No feathered companion stirring in the dark. Just the slow rhythm of breath, the calm hush of understanding. The roosters have done their part. So have you. Perhaps they never truly kept time. Perhaps they were never trained to signal secrets, or to guard the roads with sound. But they were there, at dawns and crossroads and lonely stations beneath the moon. And so were you. You carried more than scrolls. You carried presence, patience, curiosity, the kind of quiet attention that made you see what others missed. And now the Empire can rest a little because you have returned. You lie back under a blanket of stars that no longer ask questions. Your breathing slows. The journey eases out of your muscles, unwinding gently like the last line of a story told only to the night. There are no messages left to send. Only this, stillness, sleep, and the memory of a single crow in the dark. Sweet dreams.